Hello, everyone. My name is Shantae Skilldagger, and I want to welcome you to this latest episode of our Accelerated ID series. And joining me for this episode is Darlene Dalgleish. We are very fortunate to have Darlene join us today. She has 20 years of experience in the L&D field. She is a freelance instructional designer and e-learning developer, and she is one of our graduates from our Instructional Design and Tech Accelerator Certificate program. So join me in welcoming Darlene to this episode. Hey, Darlene, how are
Hi,
you?
everyone. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
So good. Well, Darlene, should we dig right in?
Let's go for it. Sounds great.
Awesome. All right. So, again, today is all about instructional design portfolios. So, I think a really great place for us to start, because I know that in our two communities, we have a mix of experience levels related to instructional design. We have experienced instructional designers, we have instructional designers who have just gotten their first job, and then we have instructional designers who are working on becoming instructional designers. So they're aspiring instructional designers. So our first question then would be, what is an instructional design portfolio and why do we need one?
Sure, sounds great. So, probably my most favorite topic in the world is not only instructional designs, but specifically the portfolio that comes along with it. So, back in the day, it used to be more, you'd see like portfolios for graphic designers, artists, photographers, that type of thing. They needed a portfolio. But now it's become a huge thing in the world of instructional design. So, what is it? You're probably asking, like, get to the chase here. Um, Really, a resume is no longer enough as it only lists your skills. You need to be able to showcase your skills and your talent, and that's what a portfolio does for you. It's ultimately proof that you can actually do what your resume says you can. And it also helps build your credibility. Plus, it gives you a leg up on the competition because now you're just showing how great you are.
Oh, I love that answer, right? Because you really do need to have that visual so that your prospective employers can see what your skill set is, to see what your
Yes.
experience is. So that's really
Yeah,
awesome.
100%.
How do we make our portfolio look more experienced rather than obviously show we are new to the field?
That is a great question. So, what I would recommend first off is it sounds really minor, but it's a huge major hit is when you do develop your portfolio, even though you may not think it's good enough, believe me, it's good enough. I've seen all walks of life of different portfolios from very minimal details to very advanced details, the more experienced instructional designers. And it's never ever stuck in one place, meaning you could develop it today and have it maybe in your opinion, I want to add some more. You can always add, it can be a work in progress that you continuously add as your experience grows too. But in addition to that, it's really important to be not overly critical of it, but put on your quality insurance hat, a quality assurance, and take a look and just make sure, no matter how experienced you are or not, make sure that there's no errors in it. Make sure that all your buttons work. Make sure that if they click on something, that it is actually opening up, that you've shared it. If you have it in like SharePoint or Google Docs or wherever you've got it, so that your permissions are turned on. Make sure that there's no typos and also just be aware, even you may not be experienced enough to recognize, but be aware of even colors and stuff. Like there's so many different cool tools out there that you can look at for colors and accessibility. So, for example, if someone is colorblind, it's actually difficult for them to see green. So, it's just little things to be aware of. Just recognize that when you're creating something, that you can actually that it's accessible, it's easy to see, the font isn't like super crazy so that it's like handwritten and they can't read it. So I think those are just really key elements that you want to be aware of as you're building it.
And I really want to highlight what you just said, Darlene, about putting on your QA, your quality assurance check hat, that is a really important component. And as individuals, sometimes we are too close to our work. And so
Yes.
our brain will fill in the missing pieces where we can't see that something is missing or something is off, or even like the user experience. Because we build something, we know exactly where to click, when it should click, we're expecting it to show up on screen. So
Yes.
if you can, we do recommend that you have a friend or a colleague go through your course and provide you some feedback. Do you have any tips for sanitizing projects from client work?
I really, really hesitate to include, and this is just me personally, and I'll explain as I go, include client work in my portfolio, and that's my own personal portfolio. The reason why is that, and I'm not saying this to absolutely everyone, if you do choose to include it, just make sure that whomever it comes from, ABC Insurance Company, whomever the corporation or your client may be, that they have given you full right to include it in your portfolio. And they truly understand that now it's public and others can see it. Because when it comes to sanitizing projects, I used to work for a large corporation, an insurance company out here in Canada, but they're North American, they're huge. And when I had left them and asked them the question of, can I use like some of my materials? I had created all this great stuff. I was excited. And it was a flat out no, like you can't. Like, even though they don't own everything that's written about insurance, it was built with them under their logo, under their branding, etc. There was no easy way to sanitize it. So I'm not saying that that is flat across the scale that you can never ever, but just first and foremost, make sure that you get like full sign off from them that yes, you can put it in your portfolio. And secondly, if not, or if so, confirm with them, do you need to sanitize it? What we mean by sanitizing is taking out some of the branding, taking out like ABC Insurance Company, that type of thing, or do they not want you to be utilizing it at all? So it really comes back to asking the client, can you? And if so, how do I sanitize it if it needs to be sanitized?
One of the things that I do sometimes in addition to that, Darlene, is maybe there is a particular interaction, or maybe there is a segment of an instructional video that I just want to clip and show as an example. So I might go to my client and say, hey, could I use this 30-second clip from this instructional video in my portfolio? Or could I take this one particular engagement exercise from the storyline file and use that in the portfolio so that I don't have all of their content? And
Yeah,
usually,
great
whenever I
idea.
ask for just a little clip, I
Mhm,
get more yeses than I do nos, versus
mhm.
if I ask for the entire product to be housed in my portfolio.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
I have courses that I built, but were not created in Articulate or Captivate. What is the best way to showcase these courses and use them to my advantage in my portfolio?
What you could do is, if you have a course that's not created in Articulate, Captivate, those are two of very popular authoring tools that instructional designers may use to build courses. But in this case, you haven't created them there. Maybe you've built it through PowerPoint. It could be like a facilitator guide that you built through Google Docs or PowerPoint or Word, etc. So many other tools. What you could do is you could also use screenshots. I've seen that done a lot.
Mhm.
And then just make sure that they're very clear screenshots. You don't want something that you've used and stretched it out so that it doesn't look very nice. So you have to be careful with that. But screenshots work, and you can also paste those screenshots even into a PowerPoint so that it displays nicely. So that's actually something that I've seen done very well. You can also place it too into, say, Google Docs, for example, and then you can share it as a document, as a Word document, and again with some screenshots or some images and some text around it too. So think though that it does depend on what you originally created it with, but be creative and use those creative juices that you've got flowing. And I know you've got them flowing because you're in instructional design. So you definitely have them. Everyone's got it.
Please help me with the About Me section. How personal do we get? What do you recommend?
I would recommend in the about me, you don't when you mention personal, you don't want to get too personal. You don't want to tell them that you've got like 5 kids, 2 dogs, 5 cats. Here's their names, here's their ages. I was married 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Because not to sound rude by any means, but that's not what they're looking for. It's not that they don't care, but they don't care enough to read like a page and a half of your life story. So keep it simple. You can still put a personal blurb in there and say, for example, my name is Darlene Dalgleish. I've worked in the instructional design area for the past 20 plus years. Add in maybe a personal reference there that after you've given your little your elevator pitch and said a bit more about yourself professionally, then you can certainly put in like in my spare time, I love to mountain climb, I love to swim, I love to etc. So you can add that in as an additional detail, and then a great picture of yourself goes a long way too, and it doesn't have to be like just the headshot picture. It could be you like in the mountains with not ideally not with your whole entire family and stuff, but just something that actually speaks to your personality as well too.
You know, we often work with Cheryl Rhodes, who is the founder of the Creative Entrepreneur. And
Mhm,
I love how she kind of gives her about and almost like a one liner plus her mission. And I just
mhm.
pulled it up while you were talking. So she has her about or even her signature says creative entrepreneur, bird whisperer, philanthropist, and unflinching optimist. Just in that one sentence, I know so much about this individual. So you could have just very short, powerful statements in your about section that will really let your prospective employer know a little bit about you. And then even below that, she goes on to put her mission and she says, my mission is to create a powerful brand for my clients that carves out their rightful space in the marketplace. So you could take something like this and adopt it and pull it in for your instructional design and your e-learning. And again, you're not getting too personal, but in a very short bit, you're really educating someone about who you are and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. So true.
How do you choose subjects to create content for?
So this particular site is one that I had stumbled upon actually when I was going through the accelerator course with our lovely Shantae. So it's called Go Design Something, and exactly as it reads, it's a great site for project ideas for instructional designers. And there's like thousands of ideas. You're never going to run out of ideas here. I was like, okay, I want to create a course, but I'm stuck. I have no idea what I want it to be on. So you go into this site, and maybe this particular one doesn't quite fit your personality or you're not passionate about it. You can just click on Give Me Another. And this one sounds great. Who doesn't like a smoothie? So you can look at using this one, and then it actually even tells you who your audience are. So, who are you creating this course for? It gives you a little general brief on it. It gives you what your deliverables are. So, you want to create a smoothie maker game. And then it also gives you some cool inspiration. So, where do I even start? What can I even look at for this? And you can just keep clicking on give me another until something actually speaks to you. I always recommend too is when you're looking at, well, what do I want to create it on? I had mentioned passion to begin with. If you're not passionable and or yes, knowledgeable about it, who isn't knowledgeable if you're passionate about smoothies and you're knowledgeable about probably how to make a smoothie, but keep it something that is in your wheelhouse of passion and that you can speak to it and that you feel like you can build up enough material to actually tell a story about it too.
I love this site. There's just so much inspiration here for projects, and that's one of the things that often is like a blocker for some of our new instructional design students in
So
our
true.
accelerator
Mhm.
program. They're like, I don't know what to build content around. So we'll recommend this Go Design Something website so that people can get inspo about something that might interest them.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's the best.
if I've been a teacher for 18 years, do I say I have 18 years of experience as an instructional designer? So I do want to take a moment just to answer this question. So, whenever we're setting up our resumes, I always encourage you to be in a place of integrity. You don't ever want to oversell what your experience is or what your skill is. There are ways to position some of the things that you did do as a teacher that fall into the domain of instructional design as instructional design, but you don't ever want to mislead someone about what your past experience was. So if you were a classroom teacher, you will say that you were a classroom teacher and then really highlight the skills and the tasks that you did as a teacher that fall into the instructional design domain. But you don't ever want to say that you're one thing when you were really doing something else, because then that's just going to lead to a different set of expectations for you as a new employee and possibly set a potential employer up to be um, disappointed with some of the things that we know. So that's my perspective, and everybody has a different perspective. What should a mid career portfolio look like? Or do we not need one anymore after landing our first job?
When you are mid-career, you definitely still need a portfolio for sure at that point. Um, and then what you want to do is I come back to passion all the time. You want to speak to your passion and to your strengths and what speaks to you at night. What if something stresses you out, like maybe you're not ideal or not loving video editing, don't focus on video editing in your portfolio. Whereas if you absolutely love doing development work or creating facilitator guides, that's the type of thing that you want to include in your portfolio. So that's the type of thing that regardless of mid-career or not, those are the types of things that you want to be adding into your portfolio. There's no right or wrong for the types of assets that you include in it, whether again mid-career or not. And I think it also depends on maybe right now you don't have experience on video editing, but that's something that you absolutely love doing, then that's something that you can include in it, even though you're mid career and you don't necessarily have a lot of experience, but you're very passionate about it. You feel great about it. You've developed some cool stuff on your own. Feel free to add that into your portfolio as well. And then the second part of your question, do we need it anymore after landing the job? So do you still need a portfolio? I would highly recommend that you keep your portfolio alive and active always. I've landed some contract work right now and it's full time, and I still keep my portfolio active and I still continuously go in and make tweaks to it and update it accordingly. If it's now something that I had a video in there at one time, but I wasn't loving doing like videos and that type of thing at that point. So I took it down for a bit and then put it up again later. So it can always be a work in progress and there's no right or wrong for it.
Absolutely. Even with us as an agency, we still get asked for examples of our work, right? Because
Mhm.
people, even though you've been around for a while and they can see from your resume that you have experience, they still want to know that your skill set is what they're looking for. So it's always good to have that ready-made portfolio that you can quickly share. So that's a really great question. What do employers look for in a portfolio?
It is kind of a depends question because if, say, for example, the contract that I'm working for is the federal government here in Canada, and they were actually looking for someone with experience with, you may have heard of storyboarding, that type of thing. Um, Actually writing out what is the course going to look like, what is it going to say. They've skipped that because they want it fast and furious and out, so that's not uncommon. So theirs was more about the true design of the course and the development of the course. So they're feeding me the content, and then live in our working sessions, I'm actually creating it on the fly as we go, and then there's iterations of it and that type of thing. So I think having said that, my past experience was they did want storyboarding, they did want like Q&A. They did want an analysis. So the whole kind of ADDIE model, they wanted a lot of those aspects there, and then they wanted prototyping and etc. So I think it really comes down to the individual employer, what they're looking for. And I'll go back again to what I said earlier is look at the job posting and pull out of it what they're looking at for your skills and what they want for your experience. Because if they're talking about like they want something with articulate story or storyline, or they want PowerPoint, or they want you to develop facilitator guides, then that's going to give you a clue as to what um, that individual employer is looking at. And again, no two may be the same. They could be vastly different.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I feel like this is one that we could talk about for a very long time
We
because
could.
there's so many there's just so much to know about portfolios. We do have from our accelerator students in our program, we do house their portfolios with their permission on instructionaldesigncompany.com. So if you ever want to go check out what people have in their portfolios, you can bring that up and go just check it out so you can see Darlene there. And even on that page where you'll find those instructional design company, those portfolios for our students on the instructionaldesigncompany.com.